We've had over, I would say, 750 million followers worth of shout outs for free. We haven't paid for any of these. And it's just organic and just being authentic.
Hey, my name is Felix Tia, and I'm the host of Shopify Masters, a weekly podcast powered by Shopify, the easiest way to sell online, in person, and anywhere in between. Each week, we invite entrepreneurs like you to share what they've learned growing successful e-commerce businesses. In this episode, you'll learn how they grew an Instagram account from 0 to 10,000 followers in just a few months, why they teased their product to their audience before ever launching it, and what is an influencer seeding program and how it can make or break your product launch. Before we get into our show, I want to share a strategy some businesses are using to help manage cash flow during COVID-19. They are selling gift cards. Gift cards give customers a way to support you right now. We've seen some creative ways to market them, like selling gift cards at a discount, giving special offers for customers who redeem them in the future, and adding free gift cards to high-value cards as a bonus. As part of Shopify's response to COVID-19, gift cards are now available on all Shopify plans, so you can start selling them right away. Today I'm joined by Nick Guillen from Truff. Truff is a truffle hot sauce with an upscale but personable aura and was started in 2017 and based out of Huntington Beach, California. Welcome, Nick.
Hey, how's it going? Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so before the hot sauce all started, it all started with more of a focus on content and social media, particularly with an Instagram account. So tell us more about the background, the origin story of how you guys got started with basically Instagram.
Yeah, so about 4 or 5 years ago, now probably closer to 5 years ago, my partner and I, whose name is also Nick, we were really into, social media and CPG, and looking at all these various brands that we saw blowing up on, Instagram and Facebook and things like that. And I kind of had a little side hobby of scooping up OG handles. So I happened to get the name Sauce. Organically. I didn't buy it. And Nick, he was the first person I told. Throughout college, we were working on various projects and we were always kind of giving each other feedback and sharing ideas. And as soon as I got the handle, I was like, yo, Nick, I just got this handle on Instagram. It's Sauce. Like, this is the Times Square of New York on IG. Let's do something with it. And he was like, for sure, let's do something with it. So we started posting content on the account, cool things, high quality imagery, things we thought would resonate with the pop culture foodie. And, what's interesting about the word sauce is it has two different meanings. It's an actual food, but within streetwear and pop culture, it also means like cool, dope. So we tried to create content that aligned with both of those words at the same time.
Awesome. Super cool. So first of all, you said that you got the sauce handle organically and did not buy. You said it was just like 5-6 years ago. And that's like crazy. How did you come across this handle that you're saying that no one had at the time? Or what was how did you come to like getting that Instagram handle?
Yeah. So like I mentioned, it was kind of a hobby of mine trying to scoop up like OG names. And I had a couple at that time. And I was just sitting down, doing my thing. And I was actually eating lunch when I was living in Long Beach. And I had like a burger and like a big glob of sauce dropped down into my lap. And while I was entering in the names, I was like, all right, like Sauce. And it was red. And then all of a sudden it turned green to available. And I hit save. I got it just like that.
It's funny, like these days, that's where the going after these handles is so important. It's almost like the way domains were for a while. I think domains are not nearly as important these days as like a handle on social media, especially something like Instagram, where you would start off first with getting a really good name, good domain name, and then figure out what you would do with it afterwards. And you guys took it even further. Not only did you figure out what to do in terms of creating content around it, but eventually after that, building a business behind it. So did either of you have some kind of like entrepreneurial background at the time? Like what were you doing prior to, basically building up content on social media, on Instagram?
Yeah, so Nick and I, we're both, I guess, born entrepreneurs. We had a bunch of little businesses throughout our life, and they kind of got more serious as time progressed. And at this time, the other Nick, he actually had a beverage company that he was launching in college. It was called Nick's Fix, and it was a powdered beverage that was designed to not only mask the taste of alcohol, but use as a chaser. So he was, trying to create essentially his own category within the college scene, and he launched it. But he had learned a lot about, product development and packaging and really what it takes to take a finished good to market. And I had a hat business that leveraged Shopify, e-com, and I was kind of really deep into the e-commerce game at the same time. And we, just kind of always put our heads together on these various projects. And when, we got this handle sauce and we started growing the account organically, that's what led us into, okay, this is cool, but, let's take this a step further. Let's create a product. Let's create a brand where this social media channel would almost be looked at as the home base. And the first market that we looked at was, the hot sauce market. And that's when we saw the opportunity.
Awesome. So you mentioned that you first started posting high quality imagery. What was where did you source the content? Like, what was your plan early on to be able to populate your feed with the right content and on a consistent basis?
So we just looked at, content from all over the web. We created some of our own. We just reposted content that we thought was really cool. And we just did a lot of digging, kind of how you see all these meme creators these days, all they're doing is looking at content all day on the internet. It's kind of what we were doing, but specifically for like food and pop culture.
How important is it for anyone else out there that's looking to build an account like this? How important is it to post original content versus resharing content that you guys, are just like?
I think it's really important to, first of all, just start. And sometimes, when you're just trying to start and getting something going, you don't have the luxury of, going around and taking a bunch of pictures, but you could create a lot of inspiration for what your brand eventually would look like by posting content that you think is relevant to that message. So that's essentially what we were doing to start.
Got it. Okay, so you had the sauce account. You guys are posting foodie related pictures, but at what point did you start noticing that there was an opportunity in the hot sauce market and wanting to transition into actually having a product, a product behind this social media account?
So we were growth hacking the account pretty quickly, and I think we got it to about 10,000 followers after 2 or 3 months. And some celebrities started following us, like Sam Smith, the singer, started following us, Complex Magazine. And that's when we kind of looked at each other and was like, okay, are we going to be a food account on Instagram, or are we going to take this a step further? So that's when we looked at the hot sauce market, and we didn't see any luxury hot sauce brand on the market. We didn't see any direct to consumer hot sauce company. And there wasn't any hot sauce brand that was digitally native. Most of the people out there, the traditional hot sauce brands that you think of, they built their business in retail. So social media to them was kind of a secondary thing. Whereas us, that was going to be our sole focus.
And, can you say more about this? Like, what does digitally native allow you to do that allowed you to compete against the more kind of, I guess, companies that started or got their birth from retail and like physical locations?
So for us, being a digitally native brand has really helped us develop with our customers and our fans and our followers a lot closer than being, a traditional retail brand. Because essentially what happens when you're a retail first brand is, you give your product to someone who, buys from you wholesale, or you give it to a distributor, and then they put it on the shelf, and then that retailer sells it to the customer. They sell to their customer. But being a digitally native brand and also being, a direct to consumer brand, you kind of own that relationship with your customer from the beginning, and you have a bigger impact on how that customer feels about their first buying experience, how you're following up with them, how you're adding value, throughout the next and repeat purchases. So it's a lot more warmer of a transaction, and you get to really nurture your customers, and eventually, they become friends.
Okay, so you mentioned that you growth hacked this account pretty quickly. So 10,000 followers within just a few months. What were you doing at the time to do that, other than obviously posting a lot of high quality images? Were you doing anything else to accelerate the growth of the Instagram account?
Yes, we were posting about 3 to 4 times a day on the highest traffic days that we saw were really like popping for our account. And we'd also tag a bunch of really big accounts like Complex, Hype Beast, Foodie, and big blogs. And back in the good old days of IG, if one of those accounts were to comment or like on the photo that you posted, if they have a large following, it's called super like. So naturally, that photo would go onto the activity feed, and everyone that's following that account would see that Complex Magazine, for example, liked Sauce's photo. And then we would just get a ton of traffic. So every once in a while, we would have, a photo that would get 2 to 3,000 likes. And it's like, we only had 5,000 followers at the time. So it was just going viral within, the Explorer feed. We also did a lot of different hashtag strategies. We had some accounts with large followings post and tag us. Essentially like the early days of influencer marketing, but not necessarily using influencers, more of accounts that had influence, like big food accounts and things like that.
Makes sense. So, are there techniques that you're familiar with today for anyone else out there that's trying to go from 0 to 10,000? Because it sounds like the techniques you use, it might be harder, or at least not as effective as it was back when you first started. But there's anything that you're familiar with to go from 0 to 10,000?
Yeah, so my advice would be on the early days of growing an account is consistency in posting. I would probably post 2 to 3 times a day. I would keep all of the content very non-transactional, meaning you're never trying to sell anybody anything on your Instagram account. You're doing this to help stimulate eyeballs. You're trying to put out satisfying content that's engaging, that people would want to share with their friends or, tag their friends. And you also want to keep things interesting for people. You don't want to post the same thing over and over and over again. You want to have a lot of variation in the types of content that you put out. I would say maybe, 3 to 4 different types of variation that remain on brand, and they remain on look and feel of what you're going for, but a different variation. So I'll give you an example. For Truff, we sell a hot sauce. Okay, we could post the bottle of our hot sauce over and over and over again, but that would just get boring. So essentially what we do is we could post a beautiful product shot. We could post a beautiful picture of food that would pair well with our sauce. Or we could just do something crazy and post like a fountain filled with hot sauce, and there's no Truff bottle in it at all. But it all comes back to just creating something that's visually satisfying and appealing to whoever it is that's following you.
Okay, that makes sense. So not just posting like product shots, but actually posting content that hopefully your ideal customer is also interested in.
Correct.
Got it. Okay, so speaking of being closer to your customer, because you're a digitally native company and brand, I think you just mentioned that you built the product alongside with the customer from the beginning. Like, how involved were they in developing the hot sauce?
So our customers actually never knew what Truff was, what it looked like, what kind of product it was until the day of launch. Essentially what we did is we reverse engineered a product we thought would be perfect for social media. And we did that in a few different ways. One of them being we wanted to create an extremely eye-catching bottle with beautiful design, something that when somebody saw it, they would be like, whoa, what is that? And then we also wanted to communicate what the brand was very easily and digestible. So if you look at our bottle, you'll see that Truff is vertically written in a beautiful font directly on the bottle. And then we have a geometric shaped sphere on the top, which is inspiration from the black truffle. And then we also not only did what we think is, a good job on designing the packaging, but we also developed a formula that we thought would live up to the standard of this luxury palette that, we were trying to translate digitally.
Got it. So it sounded like you guys invested heavily in either time or resources into the packaging itself. So talk to us more about this, or anyone else out there that is interested or that wants to focus more on packaging. Maybe they also want to develop a product that is perfect for social media. What was your process in developing the packaging? Like, walk us through the design and any iterations that were involved.
So along the way, Nick and I, when we were kind of developing the original ideas of what's now Truff, we knew we wanted to create a luxury, product, and we really wanted to get advice and feedback from people that are in the luxury world. So Nick's dad at the time, my partner, he was CEO of a luxury shoe brand called Buscemi, and the founder of Buscemi, his name is John Buscemi, who's one of our partners in Truff. He was a huge foodie and like a luxury guy, and we were always around their office, kind of bouncing ideas off of each other, and we kind of got him involved, as well as Nick's dad, and we were kind of telling him about what we were doing, and he shot some ideas back to us. So we got a lot of, I guess, really good advice and feedback from somebody that's in the space. And we were really patient. It took us about 2 years of R&D, developing the brand, the packaging, the custom bottle and cap, and the formula. It took us about 2 years before we actually took the product to market. So we were very patient.
So I think you talked about this too, where you mentioned that practicing patience and having this long-term focus has been instrumental to your success and what you guys call the grind. So tell us more about this. Like, what would you consider like the grind of entrepreneurship?
So I think what separates someone who's really serious about entrepreneurship and someone who isn't is really just going all in on it. So during this time of R&D, I had already been working full time. I was a technical recruiter, so I was like a recruiter for software engineers and developers and things like that. And I was still finishing up school. And Nick was graduating at the same time, and he went to go work in a restaurant. So he knew that, the dream for him was to start his own business. But I was kind of already in the corporate world, like, grinding over there, but really wanted to do the entrepreneur thing. And once this venture really started to paint a great picture, I quit and I moved back home with my parents at 26. And I was an Uber driver. And that's when I had started the hat company, like I'd mentioned, at the same time while doing this Truff venture that was currently in the very early stages. And I think really making that leap and, kind of just putting my ego aside and quitting my corporate job that was comfortable and moving home with my parents was the best thing that ever happened to me.
And what did that allow you to do by quitting the job and moving in with your parents? Like, what kind of advantages did that gain you as an entrepreneur?
So typically when I was working in the corporate world, I was working 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. from Monday through Friday. And I'm not good with math, so however many hours a week of work that is. And by moving home with my parents, I was an Uber driver, and I Ubered on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday nights. So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, my entire day was focused on building this business with my partner, Nick, who was all in as well.
Got it. Okay, makes sense. So for someone out there that that doesn't have a business yet, how do you recommend that they spend their time now that you've gone through this process and you recognize maybe some of the ways that you use your time most productively? How should someone else out there spend their time when they're in the early days where they don't have a business yet, but they want to start one?
So one of the things that Nick and I always say is, there's some businesses that should have never been started from the beginning. But with that being said, a lot of those businesses that are started from the beginning give us a lot of experience along the way. So for someone who's trying to start a business for the very first time, whether it be someone that wants to sell products online or someone that's opening up, a lemonade stand on the corner, the first important thing is to just get started. Just try whatever it is you're trying to do. Google how to whatever. And 9 out of 10 times, you're going to get an answer from the internet, someone on the web, or other way is to reach out to somebody that is in a position or doing something that you like or admire and try and learn from them. Whether it's you going to work for them for free for, 6 months and 3 months and really just immersing yourself in whatever it is that you want to do.
So I agree with you. I think the knowledge and information is there, and I think most people will give up before they ever truly fail because of external reasons. I think most people give up first, but you guys have been able to remain patient on that path, even though it took 2 years, even though you might not have seen any kind of tangible results from the effort you're putting in, from the patience you're putting in. How do you stay patient when you aren't seeing results yet?
It's just a matter of really believing in what you're doing and having a lot of discipline and really callousing the mind. And there's multiple ways you could callous the mind. It's you know forcing yourself to read books from the greats. It's making sure you're working out at least an hour a day. It's waking up at 4:30 a.m. even if you don't want to. It's realizing that, okay, I really have to work hard for these next 2 years. I'm going to stop partying on the weekends. I'm going to stop going out with my friends. I'm going to stop going on dates and really putting everything that you have into whatever it is that you want to achieve.
Hey, real quick, if you're enjoying the show, please leave us a review on iTunes and let us know what you think or what you'd like to hear more of. Now, let's get back to the interview. Got it. So I want to jump back to the packaging a little bit. So because of your experience with the packaging, when you see other entrepreneurs out there that maybe also have, small businesses and small businesses brands, what are some mistakes that you might see entrepreneurs making with their packaging that you recommend people focus on trying to improve?
So we had, I guess, the luxury of, I guess, being able to come to market with a product that is a lot different from what's already out there. And in saying that, I see a lot of products, whether it be hot sauce or cosmetics or beverages, and everything that you see on the shelf looks exactly the same. The only thing that's different is the color of the packaging, the text, the maybe some of the foils that they're using, but everything is pretty much the same. So our idea was like, okay, let's create something custom. When you put it up next to 10 or so bottles that all look the same on the shelf, ours is going to be the one that stands out the most. Simply because we took the extra step and we invested the extra money at the beginning to make that happen.
Got it. Now, when you were formulating the sauce, how was that done? How did you guys? How does someone even begin to create like a hot sauce?
So my partner Nick, as I mentioned before, he had a powdered beverage company in college, and he had learned a lot about developing a product, working with different suppliers, sourcing different goods and ingredients. So we were kind of able to tap into a few people in his network that pointed us into the right direction. But essentially, what we did was come up with the idea of what we wanted. So it was a truffle hot sauce is what we were going for, right? So we Googled all of the best suppliers across the country and internationally that we thought would be a good fit for our product. So we would source a bunch of different chili samples. We would source a bunch of different truffle oils. We would source a bunch of different, cumin and spices and different things we thought our product would be. And we got in his kitchen, and Nick and I literally put a bunch of little bowls together, and we probably had 300 to 400 different renditions of our formula before we found one that we thought tasted good. And then from there, we took it to a more, esteemed culinary professional that gave us a little bit of feedback. And they were like, maybe add some more truffle, or maybe, take the spice down a little bit. And that's really just how we got going.
How long did it take from that, like from the very first, raw ingredients that you ordered to like the final product that you're ready and happy with to go to market?
I would say about 18 to 24 months, somewhere in between there.
Wow. So what would you say were some of the biggest kind of leaps that you feel like you guys were able to take to start reaching the finalized product? Were there certain kind of milestones that you hit where you realized that, okay, we're making like significant progress here on a finalized formula?
I think it was like really trying to find a product or finding ingredients that we could scale, because it's not like we could just go to the grocery store and buy a bunch of branded sauces off the counter and mix them up and say, okay, this tastes good. But you can't, quote unquote, commercialize that. You can't, make large runs of that and put it in a bottle. So it was finding a supply chain from the beginning that could scale with us. And then once we did that, finding, the right people to help us manufacture it.
So looking back, what do you think you guys did right, and what mistakes did you feel like you made while going through this process of creating the hot sauce?
So one of the biggest mistakes in the beginning was I was sold on the idea of doing just a woozy bottle, which is like if you Google woozy bottle, that's primarily what a lot of the hot sauce brands are using. And I thought we could create a product that was, just as sexy by having a standard off the shelf bottle with a nicer label. But really looking back and seeing how impactful it would have been, or how impactful it is by taking that extra step early on, was very helpful. And then also the very first batch of product we actually threw away. The color was off. The viscosity was very liquidy. And that's when we realized it's like, okay, when you make something in the kitchen, when you scale it up, things change. And that's kind of, I think, what really opened up our eyes and saying, okay, this isn't just two guys in the kitchen making a sauce, putting it in a bottle. This is actually food science. It's like, let's get with the right people to help us fix this.
Mm-hmm. Did you have to do any, or were you able to do any testing of either the sauce or the packaging during these 2 years before launching it publicly?
Testing in terms of
just like testing with potential customers or like your audience, just to see if you're like on the mark.
Well, when we made the batch, we made the various batches. We had sent it out to family and friends to get their feedback, and most of the feedback was pretty positive. And I don't know if that was a good thing or bad thing. Typically, like your friend, they want to tell you that it's good, but we tried to really send it to people that were like going to give us honest, constructive feedback, and most of it was positive.
And at what point did you know that it was ready? Because it sounded like you said it took about 18, 24 months. So at that 24-month mark, what did you see that made you realize, okay, this is good to go to market?
I think it was after we worked with a couple chefs to review the product that we'd made. And once they made those final tweaks, we had created a few test batches ourselves and then sent that out to everyone. And we got really, really good feedback. And now that's when we're like, okay, let's bottle this now. How do we do that?
Mm-hmm. How did that happen? How did you connect with the chefs?
So as I mentioned, Nick, he had a powdered beverage company, and he had built a good network of people in the food industry, and they were just a couple people that were recommended to us.
Got it. Now, when you do have like a chef that you're working with, what's that interaction like? What are you looking to them for? What do they need from you when you are working with a chef for like a food or a beverage product?
We had basically just told them, our idea, what we were trying to accomplish, where we were at with our formula, and wanted to get their feedback. And I think feedback was, add a little bit more truffle, and I think that's what we did.
Nice. That's simple enough. Now, when you had that product ready to go, talk to us about the launch when on your IG on Instagram. Like, what was that like? How did you launch your product to your audience on social media?
So a year up until the launch, we were working on the brand. We were working on, the look and feel, building our website on Shopify, working with our designers, really trying to create this, very sexy, minimal look from a website perspective. And once we had gotten, all of that out of the way, and we finished our product formulation and we got it bottled, we had the idea of essentially launching with a big push on Instagram. And when I mentioned earlier that John Buscemi was one of our partners, there's also another partner named Aaron Levant, who was the founder of Complex Con, Agenda Trade Show. He now started this really cool app called Network. It's basically like the millennial QVC with streetwear drops and exclusive collaborations with awesome brands. Well, they were very well connected in the industry just throughout the years, very respected in their fields. So we were able to get a very large seating list from them out the gate. And we had about, I would say, 500 or so of, some of the most influential people in whether it be food or fashion or streetwear. And we'd started seating all of these people a week before we actually launched. So we did, I believe, 3 different posts up until our launch. One was just like a teaser post with our logo and a date, and that's all we said. And then the next one was another teaser post that showed our cap and the bottom of our bottle, but our label was blocked off and had the date in the middle. And then our actual launch photo was just this very beautiful, high quality product shot that showed the ingredients and the truffle and the chili pepper and the agave. And then at the same time, we had timed the launch of the actual product with the seating of everyone. So on this day, everyone started posting. So we had started reposting, and we just kind of made this big ripple on social media.
So lots of people, when they launch on social media, launch their product, they're just going to put it out there, like put it all out there without teasing it. What did this kind of teasing of your product do for the launch?
It starts to build hype, and you don't want to build hype too far outside of your launch because people start to lose interest. It needs to be timed correctly, and you also need to do the necessary things to get that hype going. And for us, it was getting our product in the hands of influential people before we even launched.
hmm So I want to talk about that in a second. Before we get there, it sounded like one of the really good things you guys are good at is being able to tap into your network, like find the people that can help you and tap into them. Now, when anyone else out there that might not have as extensive a network, they probably still know someone that can accelerate their path towards success. But if it feels so kind of almost like one sided, where the people in your network are so successful, so busy, they have so much influence, and you feel like you don't have as much to offer, in return in this kind of relationship, how do you approach? Like, how have you guys been able to basically approach all of these seemingly, people that are big players and big influencers in your space, and then get them to work with you when you're just starting out?
So I think it's hard to go from 0 to 100. Like, for example, if somebody right now who hasn't ever been networking, hasn't ever created a product or a brand, tries to do this, it's probably not going to work. But what we did do was, 10, 15 years ago, Nick and I were just natural born, I guess, entrepreneurs slash networkers, getting to meet new people, trying to find like-minded individuals that believed in the things we believed in and wanted to talk about the things we wanted to talk about. And that was, business and making money and hustling and innovation. So I think it takes a while before those right people come into your life. And it's really hard to force something like that. But I think if you start early on enough, those people are definitely going to start popping up if you put yourself in the right position.
And what's your favorite way to nurture or continue building on these relationships? Like, are you calling them all the time, texting them, just interacting with them on social media? Like, what's your favorite way to stay in touch and nurture these relationships that you might not need today, but eventually it might come in handy?
So it's being authentic. It's being non-transactional, always trying to add value. So like I mentioned, when we launched, we had about, I would say 500 or so people that had somewhat of influence. To date, we've probably shipped close to 5,000 to 7,500 packages to people that weren't in this network. Even the partners that were part of this was all just organic outreach through Instagram, hustling in the DMs. Hey, would your friend want to try this? So it's being creative, it's hustling, it's living in the DMs. I mean, messaging so many people until you get the little message that reads, "I'm sorry, you reached your maximum messages for the day." It's really it's grinding.
So you can pretty much build. You're saying you can pretty much build a business off of just like DMing and sending the right messages to the right people.
100%.
That's awesome. So you mentioned too that you were able to launch it successfully through a influencer seeding program. So this is the first time I've heard of it phrased this way, but I think I kind of get the gist of it. Can you kind of explain a little bit more about what you did to seed a launch essentially?
Yeah, so I mean, our product it's a hot sauce, and essentially what we had thought in our heads was, okay, we're going to be sending this to people. We want them to try it right away. So first of all, we created a custom gift box that you can't even buy online, but we put the products in this very nice gift box. It was like a vertical set top box, almost like a high end cologne or something that you would find at Barney's or Neiman Marcus. And we packaged it up beautifully. And inside the package, we had a handwritten note from whoever it was that was sending it to that person, whether it was John, Aaron, or Nick or myself. And we included a little tray to pour the sauce into. And we also included a little bag of plantain chips. And in the note, we said, we told them about the product and that we were just excited for them to try it. And we mentioned our IG handle was sauce. Now, we didn't ask them to post. That's like very important. You never want to ask somebody for anything. But we would say something like, check us out on IG at sauce. And they'd get the product, they'd open it up, they'd pour it in the little dipping tray, they'd get the chip out and taste it. And that first moment was so important to us because we really needed a product that actually tasted good. And what would happen was when somebody really liked it, the first thing they would do was take a picture and post to social media and tag sauce. And that just scaled. To this day, we're still doing it. We've had over, I would say, 750 million followers worth of shout outs for free. We haven't paid for any of these. And it's just organic and just being authentic.
That's amazing. And one other huge influencer I've seen you guys or seen about you guys is making it onto Oprah's favorite things list. How did that happen?
So year one, which I mean, like I mentioned, we kind of came out of the gate hot. We started doing a lot of media buying on Facebook, Instagram, and Google. And one day we received an email from Oprah's team um, telling us about, Oprah's favorite things, and they were interested in our product. And we knew we knew obviously who Oprah was, like she's the queen, but we didn't realize how big of a thing Oprah's favorite things is during Q4. And we had sent them some product to review, and we just kept this, dialogue of conversation going over the next couple months. And then they told us that, we were selected to be on Oprah's favorite things. And it was all very organic. Just doing the right things on social media, the right people are going to see.
Yeah. How much of an effect does being on this list? It sounds like a huge effect. So, like, can you quantify like what is the impact of making it onto a list like this?
I would say for us, being a brand that's first year in business, that's probably the biggest thing that could ever happen for a startup company, especially one that's, consumer packaged good and a product that's very giftable. It was kind of the perfect storm for us. There's a lot of brands that do get on the list that aren't able to maximize this opportunity. They don't have their store set up. They're not on Shopify. They aren't using the right tools. They don't have the right email flows set up. But we were really able to, I guess, maximize the opportunity in being on such, a fortunate experience like Oprah's favorite things.
Makes sense. So I want to talk a little about running the business. How do you spend your days these days?
So the roles, they're split up between Nick and I. We're the co-CEOs, but there's a little bit of overlap. I personally, I think, spend a little bit more time on the e-com side of things, as well as the social media side of things. And he's involved in a lot of the day-to-day, marketing conversations we're having, vetting a lot of opportunities, providing a lot of great creative input, as well as doing some of the operational stuff.
Makes sense. What about some applications or services that you guys rely on to run the business?
So we're currently on Shopify Plus, and that's more of like an enterprise level on the platform. But when we started, I think we were just on the basic plan, and we had a pop-up, to capture email addresses, and we had Klaviyo set up. So we just bare bones, grassroots ecom. Those are the three things that we really started with. And then now things have become a lot more complex and a lot more intricate. But we really just, started very simple out the gate.
Awesome. What about like the tools that you have added, since the early days that you are big fans of, or you recommend other people check out?
We love Klaviyo. We do a lot of email work. A lot of it is value added. We send recipes out to our customers every Friday. We have different flows set up on Klaviyo. So we have like a welcome flow after we capture their email address. We have abandoned carts. When someone adds something to their cart and they don't end up checking out, we'll send an email out to them, reminding them. Then we also have, various post-purchase email flows that are value added, but nurturing our relationship with the customer, as well as some various splits. So like rewarding customers for repeat purchases. Someone who hasn't placed an order in a while, you reach out to them. And just a very, a warm but effective and efficient email platform. We use Back in Stock, which is a tool that helps us capture email addresses for items that may become out of stock. So people can input their email address and be notified when that product is back. We use Gorgeous, which is a really helpful help desk slash customer service tool that integrates directly to Shopify. We're using Yapo for UGC and product reviews. And I would say those are the big ones that have been very helpful. Oh, and also a rewards program called Swell.
Awesome. Now, when it comes to design of the site, did it always look like this from the beginning, or have you guys gone through revisions and redesigns?
We had probably done maybe 3 or 4 revisions from the time that we started. And a lot of it had to do with just being smarter as an e-commerce brand, doing things that were more efficient for our customer, for their checkout process, the overall user experience, and just trying to create, a seamless start to finish from the time they get to our site, from the time their order is placed.
Can you say more about that? Like, what are some of the changes that you felt like had the biggest impact on the sales?
It's trying to create a website that communicates effectively the key points of your product, not being overbearing with crazy blocks of text, huge paragraphs, and also not trying to be like very salesy, like, having the pop-up that has the little wheel spinning saying, choose your offer and your discount.
Mm-hmm.
It's just being, very, very clean and transparent. We also added a select your option feature. So on all of our product page, it gives our customers the option to just select like 1 bottle, 2 bottle, 3 bottles, 6 bottles. We found that, a lot of people, they like having options versus just typing in the quantity that they want. It's very easy for them to just, click on the number of bottles that they want. Also, we were designing for mobile first in mind, knowing that a lot of our traffic was coming from social media. Most people were going to be on a mobile device. So really creating an effective and efficient mobile user experience was very important to us.
Mm-hmm. Now, I guess the main product, the Truff hot sauce, has over 4,500 4.5-star reviews. What has been the most, impactful way that you've been able to get customers to leave reviews for your product?
So I think it's having an effective tool that does that for you. A lot of automation. We're not, manually sending out emails to all of our customers and having them leave a review. We put systems in place that are triggered by, various events. So, for example, like our software, every time a new customer places an order, they'll receive an email. I believe it's 14 days after their purchase. Gives them time to, use the product, try it a couple times, and give us their honest feedback.
Have you tried using incentives to get them to leave a review?
Yeah, so we actually have incentives built into our rewards program. So customers can get, X amount of points by leaving us an honest review. It doesn't matter whether it's, 1 star, 2 star,
Mm-hmm.
3 star, 4 star, 5 star.
Got it. And I think you mentioned this earlier about how you have the different options for quantity. And it's interesting. You have 1, 2, 3, 6, 12, and a gallon. How did you guys come up with this configuration? Like, were you seeing people order these configurations or quantities before you kind of not hard coded, but like presented it as options?
Yeah, so we just kind of looked at the data and, we saw that on average people were ordering more than 1 bottle. So we had a default selection set to 2 bottles on our original product. We also gave them an option for, 3 bottles, 6 bottles, 12 bottles, and a gallon. Some people, when they're ordering on the fly, like maybe they're headed to a dinner party and they wanted to grab 3, or maybe they're shopping and they wanted to buy gifts for people and they would 6. So just a very like seamless, communicated effectively type of experience.
Awesome. So truffhotsauce.com is the website, @sauce is the Instagram handle. So I'll leave you this last question. What would you say would need to happen this year for you to consider this year a success?
I would say continuing to evolve as a brand, and continuing to put out content and experiences that resonate well with our customers.
Awesome. Again, thank you so much for your time, Nick.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Shopify Masters, the e-commerce podcast for ambitious entrepreneurs powered by Shopify.